Today we're going to be talking about real-time analytics in Fabric, and we're going to do it real-time. So a lot of meta real-time going on right now. Put in the chat if you've ever used real-time analytics in your day-to-day. I'd love to hear about kind of your favorite use case or the business problems that you're trying to solve using real-time. Or if you're just curious and learning, stick around. Let's all learn this together. All right. One thing to know, I've had people ask me about the font on this slide. It is dyslexic friendly. I'm a big proponent of making things accessible. So if you are curious about that, maybe you do presentations for your job or you do presentations at other data community events like this, let me know. I'm happy to share it with you. It's totally free to use. All right, with that, let's go ahead and hop in. A little bit about me. Just so you guys know, I am a Microsoft MVP for Data Platform and for Fabric. That just means that I get to do what I love and travel around the world speaking to people about the technology that we all use day to day. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. And as part of that, I am also full-time employed on top of being an MVP, like all the MVPs are. But I am a solution architect over at P3 Adaptive. I'm also a co-organizer for the Lexington Data Technology Group. So if you find yourself in Kentucky and you're maybe hitting up the Bourbon Trail, let me know. We'd love to grab a drink with you or a coffee, whatever is your cup of tea, so to speak. And we'd love to connect with data individuals in real life across the world. I do blog on Data on Wheels. You can find that blog on dataonwheels.wordpress.com. If you just go to dataonwheels.com, it will redirect you. I just don't love paying for URLs, so that's where we're at. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and on Twitter and Blue Sky. I do have all this information for you guys at the end. Also, in case you're curious, I will have a GitHub link at the end of this presentation that will have the deck I'm going to use today, as well as the Power BI file, and any other resources that we're going to talk about today. So just be aware, you can recreate this on your own at home afterward and watch the recording, follow back, play along with me. So with that, let's dive in. All right, so some prerequisites, we have to get these out of the way before we can get into the fun stuff. Just 3, thankfully. So first one, we do need a Fabric capacity. This is not something you can do with just a pro workspace or a premium per user workspace. You do need a Fabric capacity. It can be a trial. You'll notice when we go into my environment, I am using a trial capacity. So mine is working with an F64. I have run this demo on an F2. So if you can no longer do a Fabric trial, maybe you just want to spin up something that you turn on and off. I used to pay $5, if that, a month to run my F2 during this demo. Pretty reasonable, right? If you wanted to run this on your own and you can't do any trials, an F2 is a really affordable option. Again, you'll have my email after this. Reach out if you have questions. I'm happy to help you get that set up. So the other thing we'll need is pretty obvious, right? A streaming data source. So what does streaming mean? I've had a lot of people ask me for real-time data reports, and I ask them, what does real-time mean to you? And they tell me they want it to refresh every 3 hours. That's not real-time for this purpose, right? For them, that is going to be closer to real-time than maybe the monthly report they were getting. But in our instance, we're talking about data that's constantly changing and constantly able to stream. So in this demo, we're actually going to simulate that with a logic app and a REST API. And I'll dig into a little bit more about what those components mean and what you might be swapping out for your use case. The data set that we're going to use today is the International Space Station locations. So pretty cool. We actually get to see it go over the Earth. So it's going to be really fun. With that, it is free, the one I'm going to use. So again, feel free to follow along later, watch the recording, go through it step by step, and rebuild it on your own. It's totally possible. The third one is kind of a joke, right? A working relationship with time. Despite all of the jokes I could make about delta tables and time traveling, you don't need to time travel to do streaming analytics. So if any of you were thinking you needed to find a TARDIS, don't worry, we're going to be just fine. You don't need any of those resources to get started with real time. All right, so we're going to hop into the architecture. It's going to be a little bit goofy, just so you all know. What we're going to do is instead of going left to right, we're actually going to go right to left. So with the exception of the Power BI report, because that's going to be kind of the piece de resistance or whatever. I didn't take French classes, so I'm sorry, guys. But it is going to be the capstone for our demo today. So we're actually going to start with the event house, and then we're going to go back into event streams and then the logic app, and we're going to be pulling in those REST APIs into the logic app. It's a little goofy, but you'll understand as I go along. Essentially, what we need to do for this demo is we need landing zones. So we need to build the event house first so that the event streams have somewhere to go, so that the logic app has somewhere to go. A little confusing, but we'll walk through it together. With that, we're going to enter demo time, guys. So each of these slides is going to cover a section of that architecture, and then we're going to go back and forth between a demo. So just be aware we're hopping back and forth between the slide deck and the demo, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So I don't know about you guys, but after a long work day, the last thing I want to do is sit down and read a bunch of slides. So I'm not going to do that to you guys. We're going to make this pretty fun. All right, so first piece of this puzzle, creating the event house. Now, this is a little bit of a concept. If you are using Power BI today, you're likely connecting to either Excel or a SQL server. Event house is another type of server, and it runs on something called Kusto. So it's KQL. I can get into this really deep. We're going to cover a little bit more about Kusto later down in this presentation. But as far as Fabric's concerned, creating an event house is actually really easy. So we're just going to start with that. All you're going to need is a fun name. My name is not super fun, but I enjoy coming up with little dorky names for these demos. So if you're following along later or now, come up with the funnest name you can think of. All right, we are not going to be creating any tables. I just want to be clear. If you think about how you connect to data inside of Power BI, you're going to need the actual table in order to actually get data out of it, right? So we're not going to make that yet. We're going to let the event stream make that. I believe there was a question in the chat about sharing links for the prerequisites to install. You actually don't need to install any of those prereqs. I can go back over that in a minute. They are all on all online resources. So you don't need to install anything. So you'll be able to follow along with me pretty easily, even on a Mac. The only downside to using the Mac is obviously Power BI Desktop, which will be at the very end, but the actual streaming data you can do on any machine. All right, let's hop into it. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create that event house. Now, I mentioned to you guys that we're going to see my Fabric trial. We're going to start off by pulling up my Fabric capacity back to workspace. So you can see here I have this Microsoft Fabric trial workspace icon. The key is this diamond. I don't want a diamond with a little person next to it. I want just the plain old diamond. And that plain old diamond tells me I'm in a Fabric capacity backed workspace. What do I mean by the little person? I'll just show you real quickly. There are workspaces called Premium per User. And in the olden days of Power BI Premium, don't worry, not that long ago, if you're like me and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm old now. No, not that old. But Power BI Premium per user, those workspaces used to have everything that was contained inside of what was known as a P1. And so a lot of people purchased these Premium per user workspaces, but now it does have a gap. We have a gap between the capacity that is here versus a Fabric capacity. So just be aware if you're using a Premium per user workspace, it won't work for this demo. We do need Fabric artifacts. All right, so I'm going to hop back into my Fabric of Middle Earth, and we're going to go ahead and create our event house. So I'm going to click New Item up here, and I have a bunch of things favorited because I only really ever build these, 8 items. If you're not familiar with Fabric, or maybe you're just now exploring it, you'll likely have this all items pop up. There are a lot of options in here. If you're getting overwhelmed, don't worry, you can filter. So we're just going to search for event house. And if I even just stop at event, you can see we have the event house pop up. And if you want to, you can go ahead and favorite it so it's in that favorites panel for you in the future. All right, so let's go ahead and create our event house. Now I'm going to call mine the sky. and all of mine are going to be the something because I think that's fun today. I do get a little crazy sometimes. Most of my references are Lord of the Rings based, but I've had bad luck with this demo when I do things like the Nazgul. I think because it knows that those are evil, and we're actually going to be tracking some really nice astronauts. So we're not going to be naming it after evil things. So with that, we have the event house, the sky. I typically prefix my fabric artifacts with a little EH for event house, ES for event streams. The reason being, when I am looking through different outputs of logs, it's really nice to just know what the type of object it is. Typically, there's another column with those object types, but it's just a personal preference. You definitely don't have to do this. All right, so we're going to go ahead and hit create. It's going to say working on it. Wow, that took so long. No, I'm just kidding. But we have it. We're done now. All we had to do was create a name, and all of a sudden we have this KQL database where we're going to be loading our data into. So step 1 complete. You guys are doing great. Let's go ahead and hop back into our architecture for step 2. So step 2 is going to be creating the event streams. So again, event house is going to house, right, appropriate name, housing our data. The event stream is going to flow the data into the event house. Now, this is where, when I was learning this, I got really confused. I thought, why do I need an event stream with a streaming data set? Shouldn't that streaming data set be able to connect to the event house directly? The way it does that is through the event stream. It needs to do some authentication, and it also needs to do some cleanup. So we're not going to use these event streams to do any ETL, but you can. So the entire idea here is that this is going to handle the handshake of authentication between our streaming data and our actual storage of that data. Now we have 2 sources of information. We have astronauts and locations. So what we need are 2 different event streams. You can't put them in the same one. It does need to be in separate streams if they're coming from 2 different locations. So let's go ahead and hop over into that part. I will say this is the section, just so you're all aware, this and the logic app sections have the most unintuitive pieces of this puzzle. So I just want you, I'm going to call them out as they pop up, but there's just a couple things that don't work the way I think they should. So I talked to Microsoft. I encourage you to do the same. Reach out to the ideas.fabric.com with anything that you might run into as well. But we're going to go ahead and create an event stream. Again, I have it favorited, but you can find it in the all items. Let's go ahead and create this, and we're going to do 2 of them. We're going to call one the people, create. Super difficult. It is actively creating it. This does take a second longer than the event house. Let's go ahead and add some things in here. So we are going to use the custom endpoint here. The reason for that is we're going to connect to a logic app that's going to push our data, and that's not going to be in either of these. So let's go ahead and use a custom endpoint, and we're going to name it after what we're going to name the logic app. Oh yeah, this is one thing that bugs me. Sorry if it bugs you as well. We won't be able to use underscores when we do the source name, but it doesn't need to match 1-for-1 with our source. So it's a little obnoxious that we can't use the same naming convention across Fabric. Again, let's bug Microsoft about it. So we have this source name. I'm going to do logic apps the people, so that's what the LA stands for. Let's go ahead and click add. And we're going to go ahead and hit publish. Now this is something else that used to throw me off. This is not saved yet. If you exit from this, it will delete everything you just did. Granted, we haven't done that much, but I highly recommend hitting this publish button. Let's go ahead and hit that. It says committing topology. Nobody, I mean, I've looked it up before and it still doesn't make sense to me why they chose that word. But topology changes were successfully published. That's what we like to see. Oh, it went away. So let's go ahead and hop back, and we're going to make the other one. So we have one more event stream to create, and we're just going to call this one ES the places. So we've got people and places that are located in the sky. That's what we're going to be streaming in. All right, so we'll let that create itself. Let's go ahead and hop in here, we'll create the custom endpoint. And again, we're going to do this one with a similar naming convention, the places. All of this is just so we can easily tie things together in the next steps. All right, so we have created our event streams. This is awesome. Let's go ahead and create the logic gap. That is the next piece of this puzzle. All right. Once we do this, we'll actually be able to go back through the process now that we have data flowing in. So we're pretty close to the fun stuff. So if we look at this slide, we're going to create these logic apps. And how we're going to do this is we're going to navigate to the Azure portal. You might be thinking, Kristyna, you told me I could do this for next to no money. If I'm pulling in things from logic apps, aren't I going to be paying for it? Let me tell you this, I pay under $1 every time I run this demo. And I've run it before for, 2 hours because I forget to turn it off after I'm done presenting. The maximum I've ever paid is $1. It does not cost that much to run for this low of time, for this low of data. What it's pinging is going to just return simple JSON, and we're going to see that in a second. So it doesn't take too long, but we're going to basically build this logic app so that we have this REST API of data that's constantly updating, and the logic app is going to fetch it for us on a cadence, and then send it to the event stream, which is going to handle that handshake into the event house so we can store the data. So let's go ahead and get that set up. I have some notes to myself and also to future you if you are ever working in this. I will share the slide deck with you guys, but essentially we're going to be using this anonymous REST API, make sure it's a consumption app. We're going to walk through all these steps together. So let's go ahead and hop into it. We're going to hop into the Azure portal. If you're not familiar with the Azure portal, it's essentially just portal.azure.com. And this is going to be where we can build a logic app. This is also where you're going to go to purchase a Fabric capacity. So if that's something you need to do, this is going to be the portal to do it. Now, I've been using logic apps recently, so it shows up in my recents. Same with Microsoft Fabric. But if it doesn't show up in your recents here, maybe it's the first time you're logging in, you can search resources at the top. And if I search logic apps, you'll see it pops right up to the top. So I'm going to click on that service. All right, now I have a few of these because what I have learned from experience is if you forget anything, it's good to have a standard that you go back to. So I'm going to go ahead and click add. We're going to do one from scratch together. Now, my notes said you have to go with a consumption, not a standard. The reason for that is this right here. The consumption method uses the public cloud, whereas the other options use a VNet integration. For the sake of demo, and for the sake of this being a free resource and a free REST API, we're going to go with the public cloud so we don't have to configure a VNet as part of this demo. So we're going to go ahead and click on this one. I just want to call it out to you. If you're using a production workload, more than likely you're going to want to investigate having a service plan of some sort so that your data can stay as protected as possible in transit. All right, with that, let's go ahead and go into consumption. Again, just my little call outs for you guys as we go along. So inside of consumption, I have a subscription and a resource group that I'm going to use. Now, again, these are Azure standards that you'll need to have. A subscription basically tells Azure which credit card to bill on, and the resource group is essentially a billing category. Again, this is not an Azure session, so I apologize if I'm going pretty quick over this, but there are resources to help you understand these concepts a little bit deeper. But at the heart of it, this is going to be what's paying for it, and this is going to be how I label it, so when I'm looking through my billing records, I know what I spent where. With that, let's go ahead and make a logic app name. We're going to name it the people to start. We're going to have two. Remember, we're going to have the people and the places. So let's go ahead and review and create. I don't need to make any tags on there, and I don't need any special analytics on this for right now. All right, so we're going to go ahead and hit create. There it goes. Exciting. And it's gone ahead and made our resource. So I'm going to go ahead and hop back into my home page, and we're going to create another logic app. Now you'll notice that the people is here now. Our logic app did get created, but we just got to make one more real quick. So we'll do that consumption plan again. I'm going to pick that same resource group, and then I'm going to call this LA the places. Go ahead and review and create. All right, and we'll hop back into home and go into the logic apps section. So I'm going to open these both up side by side. Let's go ahead and refresh. Looks like that got built perfect. So we've got the people and the places. It doesn't usually, let's see. It's being a punk, you know, wants me to authenticate even though I'm opening from the exact same page, but it's okay. I understand. Got to be secure for these for your REST APIs, right? So we're going to hop into the Logic App Designer. This is where we're actually going to orchestrate the recurrence, which is going to be how often it's pinging that REST API. And then we're going to set up the HTTP call, which is the GET call that's going to ping that REST API and get us that data. Once we get the data, we're going to push it into our event stream that we've already created. So you can kind of see where all these pieces of the puzzle are starting to come together once we get data to flow in, right? It's an interesting thing where essentially the balloon gets inflated, right? So let's go ahead and add a trigger. We're going to start with schedule. Now you'll notice built-in tools. Some of these I frequently use, and Azure has figured that out. So it puts it at the very top for me. But I'm going to go ahead and just show you guys. Let's go ahead and search for schedule, and you'll see we have recurrence. So recurrence is going to be what we use to get this to pull on a regular basis. And we're going to start with 3 minutes. We're going to up this once we're confident in our connection strings. But for now, no reason to pay more for it to just run empty. So let's go ahead and select a time zone. Again, this is not a huge deal because we're running it on the minute increments. We'll do Eastern time, and we don't need to set a start time here. So that works for us. Then we're going to add an action. And for this next one, again, we're going to do the HTTP call. So we've got this HTTP request. I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to put in the free REST API calls. Now, this one is the people. So again, all of this is free, public knowledge. You can see here that it's an opennotify.com Astros. Astros means astronauts. So pretty fun. We're grabbing the astronauts that are currently on the space station, and we're just calling an open API. So let's go ahead, and for the method, it'll be get, but we don't need to put anything else. That's the beauty of using this data source. We don't need any headers. We don't need any authentication. We don't need any body. So we've got our HTTP call. The next step and the last one is going to be an event. We're going to send the event to an event hub. Now this is one of those pieces I was mentioning of something being a little confusing. So if you think about it, we have an event hub inside of Fabric, but that event hub is actually not going to be where we send the event. We're going to send the event to the event stream. There is no call in here called event stream. They have decided, typical Microsoft, to call things the same thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to use something called event hub send event to load data to an event stream that will then load to an event hub. Not confusing at all. I know you're all following along with me really well, but it'll be clear as we start to plug in these IDs. So let's go ahead and do send event. And another thing that I am not in love with, you'll see here, bad request connection string doesn't work, basically. We have to enter custom value for it to find Fabric artifacts. It cannot reach across the Azure to Fabric chasm. We have to give it a custom value. So where do we find that? You would think maybe it would be easy to find, and you would be, I'm sorry, unfortunately incorrect. I personally would have loved to see this pop up in the settings here. But what we don't have in here is the actual name that we need to use to tell Logic Apps what to push to. We need to go into this little custom app that we had it point to, this custom endpoint, and we're going to go underneath the SAS key authentication, and we're going to use this to connect to the data. So if we look under here, There are a few different things here. We've got the event hub name, we have the shared access key name, and we have the connection string options. We're going to copy the event hub name from here. So let's go ahead and hop back into our logic app. We're going to do enter custom value. All right, show all. And we're going to give it the content from our previous HTTP call. And let's go ahead and hit save. And let's try running this right now and let's see what happens. So if I go to the run history, you'll see failed. Failed very quickly, right? The reason is it came back with an unauthorized. It can't find that event hub by its name alone. So we need to give it a custom connection into our Fabric environment. So let's go back into send event and see, show all. I believe settings. This is why I have the old ones saved. Give me just a second. I know there's a way to basically create our connection for us. Let's go ahead and see. There we go. So there is a connection down here. Okay. So a little sneaky. You see here it says connected to locations Kratos. For those of you who may know Chris Wagner, I have given this demo on Kratos BI before, and that's why that connection is named the way it is. But we're going to change that connection to a new one. So we're going to click add new, and we're going to call it ES the people. And we're going to say access key. This is where we're going to go back to here, and we're going to grab this connection string primary key. Do not grab this primary key. Do not grab the secondary key. Grab this connection string primary key. Again, things could be a little easier. We're going to go ahead and you have to reveal it before you can copy it. You'll notice a very, very slight difference in color between this copy button and this copy button. Until you hit this little eye icon, it will not actually let you copy it. I cannot tell you guys how many times I have thought I copied this endpoint string and I was not copying it. And so I pasted in probably the event hub name a million times. So we're going to not do that. We are going to be smart. We're going to grab that key now. And look, it even says, hey, key has been copied. Super helpful. Let's hop over here. We're going to go ahead and do that. Create new. Give it a second. All right, and now we're going to give it that custom name that we had copied before. So let's go ahead and paste that in. There we go. And now if we save it, let's try running it now. Succeed, yay. All right, so we have data. It is coming in from this REST API, and then it's going to be sent off to our event stream. Let's see that that's happening. Let's go back into our event stream. And if we come in here and we hit refresh, it should give us a data preview now that we've pushed some data in here. Granted, it was just once, and we have this set up for a 3-minute runtime right now. And this one, we might actually keep it 3 minutes because the people changing on the space station, they won't change every 3 minutes. Let's be honest. People aren't hopping off and parachuting down to Earth every 3 minutes, right? We've got some time to work with that. But you can see the data came in. We've got the people, we have the number of people, we even got a success message, it's partitioned out. That's awesome. Let's go ahead and get this loaded into our event hub, right? So we're going to click on this. You'll notice it changed the background color. Super nice, because you can see up here we now have our publish button again. Do not forget to click this once you actually change something. It will delete things. But we're going to go ahead and click on this. And then we're going to click on a destination of event house. This is why we had to create our event house ahead of time, because now we can connect to it. So the destination name is going to be EH, has to be a hyphen. Gosh, they just really hate naming conventions, you know. But we're going to do the space, in that workspace. We're going to grab the sky. KQL database is named the same for us. And we're going to end up clicking create new KQL destination table. We're going to give it a name and we're going to call it, you guessed it, the people. Now a table, I'm not going to give that a prefix. We're just going to keep the prefixes at the actual Fabric item level. But this one will let us pull it into Power BI really easily. So we're going to hit done. Alrighty, and hit save. And then we're going to hit publish because saving does nothing. You have to hit publish. So let's go ahead and hit publish. It's going to do that fancy committing the topology for us. And let's take a peek at our event house and make sure our data is coming in before we do all the work to load in the places, right? So it's going to load this in. Let's go ahead and hop over to the event house, the sky, and let's just take a peek at what we've got in there now. All right. So it says no tables. I don't believe you. This is where sometimes my patience wears thin. Let's go ahead and hop back in here. Right. Let's go ahead and do another push and see if that creates our table for us. So we'll hop back into the people, Logic App Designer, and let's go ahead and hit run. And let's see if that triggers the data to populate in here for us. In-house. There it is, the people. Look at that. As soon as I actually send data to it, it makes a table. Who would have thunk? So we actually have data coming in here now, which is pretty exciting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat this process much faster for the places so we can get to the fun stuff, which is building the reports. So let's go ahead and hop back into the places. We're going to go to that Logic App Designer again. We're going to create the trigger of a schedule. Go ahead and do recurrence. And this one, I want it to go every 3 seconds. I know, crazy time, but let's go ahead and make it happen. We're going to do the HTTP again, but this time our connection is going to be to the ISS now. So pretty fun. We do this one. You see ISS now. By the way, if you ever want to check these APIs out, it's pretty fun. You can just paste it into your URL and it will give you the JSON response. So if you're ever curious if things are, working as they should, or if you have the right URL, try this out and just make sure that it's actually giving you some data back. All right, so we're gonna hop back into the places. Our method is get. We don't need to put anything else in here because we're using an open source API. And then we're gonna go ahead and go back to our event house, or event hub, I mean. We're gonna send the event to our technically event stream, right? You guys remember that? Our send event actually goes to the event stream, not to the event hub. So let's go ahead and add new. We're going to call this one event stream the places. And let's go ahead and hop back in to our Fabric environment and grab that connection string. So again, we have to make that custom endpoint. I must not have done that before, the places, or I forgot to publish equally as possible. Let's go ahead and publish that. And then it'll let us grab our actual authentication strings. So again, we're going down to the SAS key authentication. We're going to let that load up. And then we're going to reveal the key, the connection string, so that we can actually copy it. And then we're going to paste it into our Logic app so we can get data flowing in here. So just got to give it a minute because I forgot to hit publish before. So it's just building it as it's also grabbing the connection strings for us. So let's go ahead and close that out and reopen it. Places. Come on, buddy. All right, promising. We'll give it a second. See if any of these are loading yet. It's a very sad demo. Let's go ahead and click edit and see if that forces it. All right. Source. Go back. 5. All right, buddy. We don't have time for this. We're doing some good stuff. All right, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can edit it and maybe replace this custom endpoint source. I think it's just having a moment. So we'll just call it LA places, add, publish. See if that fixed it. There we go. When in doubt, delete, restart. I think we've all run into that before. With this one, again, I hadn't done that much work, so not a big deal to delete it and redo it. I'm going to copy that event hub name, and then I'm going to reveal the key before I copy it. And then I copy it, and I know I've copied it. So let's hop back into our logic app. And I'm going to use, for those of you who don't know, I use basically, I think it's Start V, and it opens up this little clipboard. Super fun if you're ever curious about how to copy and paste multiple things at once. So this should be the wrong thing. Let me actually paste in the endpoint. We'll hit create new. Da-da-da. All right, and then we're going to put in a custom value for event hub name, which is from this point right here, the event hub name. We'll hop back in here and we're going to give it the content from our HTTP call. What this is basically doing, this is the most important step, to be clear. We're getting the data from here, and then we're basically going to capture it in that content section. And then using this connection we just made, we're going to call this event hub and be like, hey, can you take this? I don't want to deal with it. So no data is being stored in Azure. It's all going to be stored in Fabric, which is technically Azure, but you get what I mean. None of it's going to be stored here in the Logic app. So let's go ahead and hit save. And then we'll hit run. And let's just make sure that all of that worked. So let's go into run history. Boom, we've already got successes. This is pretty exciting. Let's hop back into Power BI. We should be able to see some data previewing. And then we'll add our destination. Come on, buddy. It's having a senior moment, I feel like. It was doing so good at the last one. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and have this connect to the event house while we're thinking about it. And we'll give this our event house name of the sky. Connect it in here to the correct one. And we don't want to override our existing one, but we'll make a new one called the places done. It will be JSON. We'll click save and publish. There we go. Okay, so it got some data. Sometimes I think the UI gets stuck. Is typically what it comes down to. It's working behind the scenes. It's just a little frustrating when you don't see it right away, especially when we're talking about real time, right? I got high expectations for something called real time. So let's hop back into our actual KQL, and let's make sure that we now get a new table. So event house, let's refresh this. Again, we've got the sky. Let's hop back in. Still not in there. Let's go back to the places and just make sure that the data is flowing through. Oh, it's still loading. Okay, it's still trying. You just had data in here. I just saw it. Let's see. This should be running every 3 seconds now. Let's hop back into run history. There it is. Okay. So it is running. You'll notice that most of these take under a second. Occasionally we get a larger ping. Let's hop back into here. See if we can get it to do its thing. There we go. There's some data. Let's make sure. Yep. Okay. So that looks like it's got data. Let's hop back into KQL and just verify. Boom. We officially have 2 tables, guys. We have loaded real-time data into Fabric. We have the people and the places. Let's make a report, right? Let's take this and make it cool. So under the hood, this is not a typical SQL server. This is using something called KQL. So let's go ahead and hop back in here while that gathers a little bit more data for us. The last thing we need to do is actually connect this data into Power BI. So KQL is not the same as SQL, SQL. KQL is the Kusto query language. So the basic syntax is essentially you give it a table name and then you're going to give it what's called operator statements. Now, there are some amazing tools out there to learn KQL. There's something called a Kusto Detective Agency. Super cool. You can basically play a game to learn KQL. Couldn't have made it better if I had thought of it myself. So I highly recommend doing that. Again, you are going to get this PBIX file, and this PBIX file contains the KQL queries that I'm using to load this report. So to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to change up the connection. And part of the reason I want to show you guys an old version is so that you can watch me change the server in the database so that if you build this on your own, you know exactly where to change it. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Again, I am using a Power BI report. This is not the same as a real-time dashboard. In my opinion, real-time dashboards are what you're going to want to use if you're looking at mechanical data. So for example, if I need to see how many orders are behind by X number of minutes, or maybe I'm running a logistics window of some sort and I need to see the number of trucks that are coming in the next hour versus which ones are late, that kind of thing. When we're talking about really quick numbers on a screen, you're going to want to use those real-time dashboards. They're really good at that. They're really good at simple visualization. They're not great at making these Azure app maps. That's pretty cool. I like making things that are a little more custom. If you want to dig in and make something that's more robust, you're going to need a Power BI desktop. I'm going to show you how to make it work for real time. So with that, we're going to go ahead and pull back into Power BI. So let's go ahead and hop back in here. Now, again, like I said, you're going to have this PBIX file from my GitHub. There are two things you need to change. You're going to need to change the Kusto DB URL and the Kusto DB name. Now, in our case, the name we have is the event house name, right? So it's the sky. To get the URL, I'm going to have to hop back into Fabric. Oh, here we go. And we're going to grab this. See right here, real-time dashboard. They make it easy for you. I'm going to go ahead and click these three dots. Where was it? I think it's actually in the event house that I need that. Here it is. Okay. Oh, all right. So you see it has this query URL and ingestion URL. Let's grab the query URL. So I'm going to hop back in here. Let's paste that in. All right, real test, we're going to hop into one of these. We're going to edit the credentials. Even though this is going from me to me, it's always going to want to re-authenticate to make sure it's using the correct credentials when it's connecting to these data sources. All right, so let's go ahead and yeah, so one thing to note, I made these really weird names for these tables. So if you're doing it on your own and maybe you're also changing the names, how you're going to want to do it is in this advanced editor, this is the table name. This first one before you have the bars, before you have those lines. So we're going to call this one would be the location. So it's going to be the places. We're going to hit done. Boom, just like that. That's all we needed to do, and now we have data flowing into Power BI. Pretty exciting. So this thing is awesome in my opinion. Let's go ahead and get the astronauts loaded in a similar fashion. Again, we're going to change Palantir to the people. Let's go ahead and hit done. And boom, we get everybody who is in space. So you'll see that there are some even in a different spacecraft. Pretty cool what this API has. Again, we've got a couple of duplicates. That's something we could work on. But for now, let's go ahead and just pull this in and we'll focus on the actual cool thing, which is the orbit. So let's go ahead and change this out to the places. Done. All right, got issues going on here. Timestamp searches. Okay. Let's see. All right, so our location data, you can see it's got 3 different fields in here from what we're returning. We have ISS position and latitude and longitude. If I come in here, let's just take a peek at this and just triple check that I've got my query right for the orbit. So it should be grabbing, yeah, it's grabbing to string the ISS location, because basically if I were to do this raw, let's go ahead and do a new query from a SQL server, and we're going to grab from our parameter, direct query. We'll just go ahead and hit OK. We're going to see our options here. So we'll sign in. It doesn't like that I want to sign in. Come on, buddy. There you go. Next. It's been a long day for the computer. It needs a little sleep. Go. I always try and close out all my browser windows before I present, because that alone is going to cause things to be crazy. So let's go ahead and let this connect real quick. And what this will do is it'll allow us to kind of poke around with the native before we add in a KQL query. So pretty fun. Let's go ahead and see if this will load in. Come on, buddy. All right. Let's go ahead and start from not scratch. We'll duplicate this. We're going to edit this source. We're just going to grab the places. Okay. All right, there it goes. So it looks like it's pulling in correctly. All right, I'm going to go ahead and delete this for now, and we're going to go ahead and run with the other 2. Let's go ahead and close and apply, and we'll see if that lets me do what I wanted to do. All right, close. So first thing you're going to notice is that, let's see, we have this map and it's already dynamically moving. So if I zoom in on this a little bit, and zoom out on the map, I want you to watch this red or this little purple dot. So you can see how the map is adjusting. What this is actually doing is it's pulling in the last known location of the ISS space station, and it's just mapping out a little course for us. So the way that this works and the way this stays live is I've got a page refresh on here. So this auto page refresh is how you get Power BI to stay live. The key here is that your admin in Power BI tenant actually has to set up the ability for this page refresh to work in the online server. If you don't have this set up, I think it defaults 30 seconds, which is not as live as you might need. So if you need to go more frequently than 30 seconds, you'll need to talk to your tenant admin, and they can turn this on for you so you're able to have faster page refreshes in the online server. So let's go ahead and just take a peek at this, see if my thoughts were correct. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to come back in here and we're going to just delete this for now. Let's see, cannot compare types of long and date time. Try adding explicit cast. Let's see what we're doing in the query that would do that. So we have timestamp, and basically what I've got it doing is taking a 90-minute rolling window. So it's pretty neat. Basically, I have it filtering to 90 minutes ago. Unfortunately, I think what's happening is that the timestamp isn't coming in like a formatted timestamp string like it used to. And so that's what's causing the issue. The reason why we're not getting that in the other script, if we look at that KQL query, is that I'm just taking a top 20 by the timestamp. So it's only grabbing the top 20, the last 20 known locations. So it doesn't have to deal with that time zone conversion or time conversion at all. So let's go ahead and hop back in here. And let's just do a little bit of troubleshooting. I think that that might be valuable. I think I've got a little bit of time, so we'll do that. How to convert KQL number to timestamp. Format date time, that looks like what I want to learn. Let's go ahead and open that up. If you guys are like me, this is pretty typical. This is what I'm doing all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and hop in here, and we have this date time value to format. So let's see if this will work for us, because our format is a little weird, right? So see here, supported delineators. Yeah, we don't even have delineators. All right. Yeah, let me hop back into our actual API call. So I'm going to pull that up real quick and just see if they change the way that this comes through. That does happen. I don't own the REST API, so it's entirely possible that they've changed that. So let me go ahead and pull in the ISS now, and let's just see if it comes in. Yeah, they've definitely changed that. So this timestamp used to be a true date timestamp. That's no longer the case because we actually don't have more than 20 minutes of data. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove it from our KQL script so that this runs for now. I'm going to go ahead and pull that out, and I'll make sure that this is the version that ends up in your guys's GitHub. So again, I'm going to go ahead and drop this, and we're going to go ahead and hit OK. Why you got a problem? I don't think that you're playing very nice, my friend. All right. So let's go ahead and just take a peek at this one. Yeah, we don't need that. I don't know why. Huh. So when in doubt, go into the advanced editor, steal judiciously. And basically what I'm going to do is figure out what I need to replace in here for it to work. So we have the places. We're going to take out that. We've got the two strings are the same. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. And what we're going to do is get rid of this top 20. There we go. Done. That should fix our problem. I'm going to go ahead and close and apply. So first of all, now that it applied, we can actually see where over the earth it's moving. So pretty cool, right? We can actually see that happening live every 5 seconds. It's grabbing new data. If I zoom out, we can actually see, oh, not on the page, maybe. See if I can zoom out on just the map. Oh, it's just being a little punk. Okay. Let's see where this is. Anybody know where this is in the world? Let's see. Oh, awesome. So it looks like it's over the Black Sea right now. If I scroll back in, we can actually watch it moving. If I go into orbit, you can see all the data we've collected since we started this demo. So you can actually see that it's arcing over the Earth because the Earth is not flat. I hate to break it to some of you who might have thought that previously, but with the Earth not being flat, it has to go in an arc over the Earth. Pretty cool. All right. So that was a lot of back and forth, a lot of kind of troubleshooting. So thank you for sticking with me, guys. Any questions, any concerns now that you guys have seen this thing end to end? And I'll pop back up the architecture so we have something to look at when we're talking. Oh, thank you, Kevin. What a saint. I'll have to apply that in Unix time. Didn't realize it was doing that. I'll check that out. Otherwise, again, this is not a huge deal. We haven't had this REST API running for longer than 90 minutes anyway, so my filter wouldn't have done anything to begin with. But I am sorry that they changed that formatting for right now, but it's all good. Cool.
This was really great, Kristyna. It was awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I loved it. If anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can come off mute, whatever you prefer. It was really neat to see how you kind of like did your troubleshooting in the moment as well too. So that made it like really relatable.
I try hard not
Quick
to do
thinking
too
on your
much
feet.
troubleshooting. Yeah.
No, it was really good. This is a really, really awesome use case as well too. And if people are a little shy with the questions as well too, if you're okay with us sharing your LinkedIn
Yes.
profile, and we can share your GitHub as well too.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, this was great.
Awesome. Yeah, let
Awesome.
me put this into GitHub right now while I'm thinking about it, and it'll have its own little folder for this user group. So,
Perfect. That's awesome.
yeah.
Does anyone have any questions? Anything at all? Nothing in the chat. Everyone's very quiet today.
It is Wednesday. I don't blame you
It is
guys.
Wednesday.
And it's a very nice fall Wednesday, at least here in Kentucky.
Yeah, it's not too
So,
bad here either. Oh, we do have a question. Can we use Snowflake also?
as a source of data or as your event house?
We'll see what they say in the chat. Event hosts.
So I believe that you can't. I could be wrong, but if I go back into Fabric, I think you can't for this type of solution. I'm not totally sure if Snowflake has a similar style of event house as Fabric. If I go back into our event stream, the key is if it's a connector that we could land data in, right? So if let's say that I edit this, let's see, the people, yeah, it's a good one. If I edit this destination, let's go ahead and add a destination and see what we got for options. We have activator, a custom endpoint. So I guess you could probably load this into a Snowflake if you had an endpoint that you could ping. Otherwise, it's loading into some Fabric artifacts. So just be aware if you do that, it will be a custom configuration on your end. I don't know that I would do that, at least not from Fabric. If you needed to stream real-time data into Snowflake, I would probably use a different tool.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Got a
no
thank you from
problem.
one.
Yeah.
Are you sure the Earth is not flat and that the ISS is just not traveling in a way that makes it look like it's not flat?
You know, Kevin, I can't guarantee anything, unfortunately. But I'm not rich enough to go up myself. But I'm gonna put my faith in a lot of history, a lot of
Just want to
astronomers.
make sure we could point out, or we could interpret this chart in two different ways. So
No, it's true, but it's pretty fun, isn't it? I have tracked it sometimes for multiple days on accident because I forgot to turn it off, and it ends up doing kind of like a little loop like that, and it's pretty cool to see it travel day over day over different parts of the Earth. All right, I'm assuming data analyst, will Fabric help me, or as a data engineer? Um, I'm thinking the question here is, will Fabric be useful for a data analytics workflow or just for data engineers? And the answer is yes. So for those of you who don't know, Fabric started off as Power BI. If you are a data analyst, a lot of those roles are kind of blending together, especially for smaller business units. So if you're working with a team and maybe you need to be more involved in the data engineering side, then Fabric is going to be perfect because you're not going to need to learn a whole new tool stack. You're going to be able to stay in the same ecosystem that you're used to, and play around with what you need to get the job done. So Fabric itself, those artifacts are typically geared toward data engineering. That being said, Power BI is the grandparent, the owner, the original, the OG of Fabric. So it's all built off of Power BI to start out with, at least with the UI. For example, one way I always show this to people is the URL, right? This URL right here is still Power BI, even though this is Fabric. So it's built off of Power BI, which is a really big tool for data analytics. And now we get to do data engineering with it. So the answer is a little bit, it depends. If I need to process a large data set, how does it compare to Databricks? I will be honest, I haven't done a comparison between this and Databricks. I will say that KQL is extremely powerful. I would be shocked if it doesn't perform as well with real-time streaming as Databricks. I know that if you have your ecosystem already built in Databricks, it's not typically worth the lift and shift to move your existing architecture into Fabric. So think about why you want to move into Fabric. Is there additional capabilities that Databricks doesn't have that you want to have? Then it's probably worth it, but just for the sake of doing it, it's not necessarily a great option. The classic, it depends, I guess is how I would put that.
Thank you. Any more questions from anyone? Okay, if not, we will share Kristyna's information. Thank you again, Kristyna. That was awesome. That was so good. Not surprised. Not surprised at all. Amazing.
I thank you for having me again. This was awesome. I always love love chatting with folks and hearing what the questions that pop up. I'm gonna put this in the chat. So again, this is open to anybody. You can grab the PowerPoint and the PBIX file I used in today's session.
That's amazing. We'll also email it out to our members as well too. And we thank you again for joining us. We look forward to seeing a lot of the people here online to come to SQL Saturday next month. Yeah. We hope to see you. And yes, the recording will be shared as well too. So thank you as always for joining us on this Wednesday night here in Ontario. I don't know what time it is where you are, Kristyna. Is it the same time? Like, I don't
know. 7 o'clock. Are you Eastern?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. Okay.
Yeah. Kentucky's a weird state. We're half in, half out.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks, everyone. And we hope you have